More than 25 years ago, Dubai opened a hotel that appeared to defy its environment. 321 meters of concrete and steel rising from an artificial island in the Arabian Gulf. In April 2026, Jumeirah announced that Burj Al Arab would enter an approximately 18-month restoration program. This represents the first major transformation of the icon since it opened in 1999. That does not mean the hotel is sinking. There is no public evidence that its foundations are failing. The announced project focuses mainly on preserving and renewing its interiors. But that creates a more uncomfortable question. What happens when a building designed to look timeless begins fighting time itself? And why does Dubai need 18 months to make certain the world never sees that battle? To understand what is happening inside the most famous hotel in the Middle East, we must first separate confirmed facts from internet speculation. According to official announcements from Jumeirah, Burj Al Arab has entered a phased restoration program. The projected timeline spans approximately 18 months. The stated objective is to refresh and upgrade the interior spaces while meticulously preserving the original design identity. The acclaimed designer Tristan Auer has been appointed to lead the creative direction of this interior renewal. This is a long-term strategy prepared after more than a quarter of a century of continuous operation. Those are the confirmed parameters. Then there are the reported operational impacts. Reuters cited an employee, stating that the hotel would close during the renovation period, with upcoming guest reservations being relocated to neighboring luxury properties within the Jumeirah portfolio. However, the most vital information lies in what has not been proven. There is zero verified structural data suggesting the foundation is failing. There is no engineering report stating the artificial island is being reclaimed by the sea. There is absolutely no credible evidence that the 230 concrete foundation piles are losing their load-bearing capacity. The marine environment has not suddenly triggered an immediate structural crisis, and this massive project was not activated by a single catastrophic failure event. The reality of maintaining a global landmark is far more complex than a sudden collapse. The most revealing detail may not be how much the hotel will change. It may be how much has to change without allowing guests to feel that they have entered a different hotel. To understand why that is exceptionally difficult, we first have to leave the gold and marble behind and descend into the system most visitors never see. When a guest looks out from a panoramic suite, they see a seamless luxury experience. When an engineer looks at the exact same space, they see a sprawling, interconnected system fighting a relentless war against nature. Burj Al Arab sits on a custom-built artificial island situated roughly 280 meters offshore. It does not simply rest on the sand. According to the original structural data, the entire weight of the soaring superstructure is supported by more than 230 concrete piles. Each of these massive columns was driven approximately 40 meters deep into the seabed. They rely entirely on the friction of the densely packed sand to hold the building firmly in place. This was a pioneering solution to a massive geographic problem. The structural design had to account for everything from the protection of the perimeter shoreline to the saturated ground conditions and the immense downward forces of the building itself. The architecture is a marvel, but it is the invisible subterranean network that allows the marvel to exist. There is the foundation slab, the waterproofing membranes, the sprawling electromechanical systems pumping cooled air and desalinated water upwards through the towering central core. The massive facade that continually shields the atrium from blistering solar radiation. We are talking about tens of thousands of structural joints, custom fabricated panels, and hidden mechanical connections that require constant monitoring. Dubai's summer temperatures easily exceed 40 degrees Celsius, forcing the steel exoskeleton to expand during the day and contract at night. The original engineers brilliantly answered the question of how this structure could be built in such an uncompromising location. But the current restoration program forces a completely different question. How can the entire operational experience continue to meet the absolute highest standard of a luxury icon after more than 25 years of continuous exposure? Which would concern you more, the sprawling mechanical system hidden beneath the water, or the microscopic flaw that millions of cameras could suddenly capture on the surface? The next threat does not need to arrive as a massive winter storm. It can begin with something much smaller than a grain of sand. We have to follow the microscopic journey of seawater to understand the true cost of defying the marine environment. Imagine the heavy moisture rising from the Arabian Gulf. It is carried by the wind and deposited directly onto the exterior surfaces of the hotel. When the intense sun heats the structure, the water evaporates into the atmosphere, but the salt does not evaporate. It remains behind, crystallizing on the surface. This brutal cycle of intense heat, suffocating humidity, and rapid drying repeats every single day. The protective coatings, the specialized sealants, the expansion joints, and the exterior finishes must all work in perfect harmony to prevent the marine environment from advancing deeper into the structure. Engineers must identify the absolute earliest signs of material fatigue long before a paying guest ever notices an imperfection. Concrete is incredibly durable, but it is not an absolutely sealed sheet of glass. In marine environments, chloride penetration is one of the primary mechanisms engineers must meticulously control. If chloride reaches the reinforcing steel embedded within the concrete in sufficient concentration, it can disrupt the protective condition of the steel and initiate the process of corrosion. The resulting products of corrosion occupy significantly more volume than the original steel. This expansion generates immense internal pressure that can eventually contribute to surface cracking or concrete spalling. It is crucial to state clearly that this is a general marine engineering failure mechanism. It is not evidence that Burj Al Arab is currently suffering from major structural corrosion. However, it perfectly illustrates the relentless pressure the environment applies. At an ordinary roadside hotel, a minor cosmetic flaw or a small rust stain might simply be added to an annual maintenance checklist. At Burj Al Arab, a microscopic sign of aging can become catastrophically expensive before it ever becomes structurally dangerous, simply because it directly conflicts with the foundational promise of absolute perfection. If a visitor can already see the problem with their own eyes, did the maintenance operation begin too late? This changes the meaning of failure. A hotel does not need to collapse before it begins failing at the job it was created to perform. The most clickable story on the internet would be that Burj Al Arab is slowly sinking into the sea. It is also the exact story that the available evidence absolutely does not support. The far more credible danger is much subtler. A luxury icon does not need to become physically unsafe before it becomes a massive operational problem. It only needs to begin looking like a construction site. We can categorize this into 4 distinct levels of failure. The first level is visual failure. This happens when the surface finishes are no longer uniform. A lavish interior space begins to look undeniably dated. Scaffolding or protective netting appears on the pristine white exterior. The reality of the physical experience no longer matches the flawless promotional images used to sell the dream. The second level is service failure. This occurs when a signature restaurant, an ultra-luxury suite, or the famous terrace must be closed to guests for unplanned repairs. The noise of drilling or the sight of temporary access routes bleeds into the guest experience. The technology embedded in the rooms no longer meets the rapid expectations of the modern traveler. The third level is operational failure. This is the breaking point, where routine maintenance heavily conflicts with the daily operations of the hotel. Entire sections of the property must be taken completely offline. Consider the pure math of this scenario. Burj Al Arab houses 202 ultra-luxury suites. If a significant section of the property must shut down unexpectedly, the hotel does not just face massive repair bills, it faces the catastrophic evaporation of premium room rates and the highly lucrative daily foot traffic that sustains its elite culinary spaces. The economic dynamics of the luxury hospitality sector in Dubai dictate that an empty high-end restaurant or a closed VIP terrace is an immense financial drain. Industry benchmarks suggest that abruptly closing a property of this unmatched caliber, halting its complex daily operations, could incinerate hundreds of thousands of dollars in projected revenue every single day. The financial cost of attempting to preserve the original experience while guests are present becomes vastly more expensive than a controlled, total closure. The fourth and final level is structural failure. This is the severe, dangerous degradation of the core building. Again, there is no verified public evidence that Burj Al Arab is anywhere near this fourth level. But let us look at a hypothetical reputation scenario. Imagine it is early morning. A small section of the famous atrium is heavily draped in protective sheeting for an entirely routine engineering inspection. A guest points their smartphone upward, records a short 30-second video of the disruption, and posts it online. The viewers around the world do not see the rigorous technical reports. They do not understand preventative maintenance schedules. They only see an aging icon showing a glaring sign of abnormality. The speed of a thorough engineering explanation is always vastly slower than the viral speed of a concerning image. The officially announced restoration reveals something entirely unexpected. The most difficult component to preserve may not be the concrete, the steel, or even the artificial island. The officially announced program focuses intensely on the interior architecture. The scope involves the exquisite materials, the unparalleled craftsmanship, the integration of new technology, and the strict preservation of the aesthetic identity that made the building a global phenomenon. Tristan Auer and his design team are tasked with preparing the hotel for the next 25 years. They must refresh the spaces without destroying the eccentric, vibrant design language that originally put Dubai on the international luxury map. This creates a fascinating paradox. A normal hotel can renovate and modernize until it essentially becomes a completely new hotel. Burj Al Arab has to become completely new without allowing its guests to ever feel that it has become someone else. The design team must walk an impossibly thin tightrope. They must retain the bold colors and the unmistakable sensation of entering an Arabian palace. They must seamlessly upgrade the invisible climate control and digital infrastructure. They must increase the modern conveniences expected by today's elite, while fiercely protecting the specific visual details attached to the memories of their most loyal returning guests. They cannot afford to turn this incredibly unique structure into just another anonymous international luxury hotel. The absolute goal is to forge a modernized experience that still triggers the immediate emotional reaction of knowing that this could only possibly be Burj Al Arab. In my view, fame makes Burj Al Arab vastly more difficult to restore than a standard building. Change too little, and the heavy weight of age becomes undeniably visible to the naked eye. Change too much, and the restoration destroys the very identity it was meant to protect. Imagine the iconic atrium, the geometric patterns, the vibrant blues and golds, the cascading water features, replacing the bespoke fabrics, restoring the acres of gold leaf, polishing the rare marbles, and updating the custom furniture requires a surgical touch. The balance is brutal. Too little change equals the loss of relevance. Too much change equals the loss of identity. The 18 months are therefore not only about deciding what physical objects must be replaced, they are about identifying exactly what intangible feelings must never be allowed to disappear. Jumeirah has not released a highly detailed month-by-month engineering schedule to the public. Therefore, any breakdown of the workflow is an illustrative restoration sequence and not the officially disclosed project schedule. However, managing a project of this magnitude generally follows a strict, systematic progression. Phase 1 is exhaustive documentation. Before a single tool is lifted, teams must meticulously record the exact geometry, color palettes, and material conditions of the spaces. They must identify every single architectural detail that demands strict preservation. They create highly detailed spatial maps of the rooms prior to any physical intervention, noting exactly how guests have interacted with each specific zone over the decades. Then comes the physical intervention, and with it, a profoundly eerie silence. There is a strange psychological weight that takes over a mega hotel when the guests vanish. Imagine the soaring atrium, normally echoing with the soft movement of fountains and the hum of elite conversation, completely emptied. The flawless marble corridors are stripped of their ambient music. The relentless, invisible ballet of room service and housekeeping completely stops. Instead, the world's most famous luxury spaces look almost post-apocalyptic. Entire gilded hallways and opulent entryways are heavily draped in thick protective plastic sheeting, standing quietly in the dark. But Phase 2 is selective dismantling. This is not a chaotic demolition site. It is a highly controlled deconstruction. Workers must carefully categorize the elements that can be fully restored in specialized workshops and separate them from the materials that require complete replacement. They must install heavy protective layers over the signature elements that will remain fixed in place. Phase 3 introduces the systemic upgrades. This is where modern 21st century technology is physically woven into the late 20th century architecture. Miles of new cabling, advanced climate sensors, and smart room controls must be perfectly hidden behind the opulent walls. The absolute rule is that no modern technological upgrade is allowed to visually disrupt the established design language. Phase 4 is bespoke crafting. Because nothing in this hotel is standard, everything from the luxurious upholstery fabrics to the customized furniture pieces and intricate decorative trim must be specifically manufactured. The quality control during this phase is obsessive, monitoring precise color matching, structural scale, acoustic properties, and the absolute perfection of the final finishes. Phase 5 brings the installation and the rigorous final handover. During this stage, two distinct tests must occur simultaneously. The engineering test asks, does this new system function flawlessly? The psychological test asks, does this space still possess the authentic soul of Burj Al Arab? Yet even a perfectly managed 18-month restoration does not occur in total isolation. This massive work is taking place at a specific moment in time when Dubai needs its most famous symbols to project strength and stability with unusual force. We must zoom out from the artificial island and look at the broader economic landscape of the city. The context of this restoration is crucial. Dubai welcomed an impressive 19.59 million international overnight visitors in the year 2025. This represented a solid 5% increase compared to 2024. The momentum continued into the beginning of 2026, with the city receiving approximately 2 million visitors in January alone, marking a 3% increase from the previous January. However, the global travel market is exceptionally volatile. Following various regional economic shocks in early 2026, Reuters reported that Dubai authorities held immediate discussions with the business community to strategize on how to aggressively attract tourists and investors back to the region. The city subsequently announced a massive targeted support package of 2.5 billion dirham, focusing specifically on stabilizing heavily impacted sectors like tourism and retail. It is absolutely vital to make a clear distinction here. The plan to restore Burj Al Arab was prepared long in advance. It was not announced by Jumeirah as a panicked consequence of the tourism crisis or any single operational incident. However, the timing of the project magnifies the pressure. The restoration is happening precisely when the city is fighting to maintain its global image. The hotel does not represent the entirety of the Dubai economy, but it is a uniquely powerful visual asset. When the building operates flawlessly, it broadcasts a loud, global promise of unwavering stability, infinite wealth, and untouchable luxury. When it temporarily steps back from that state of visible perfection to undergo repairs, the way the project is communicated to the world becomes incredibly important. The three clocks we have discussed are now fully converging. The more than 25 years of relentless environmental aging, the 18 months of intense, highly orchestrated restoration work, and the 30 seconds it takes for public perception to shift based on a single speculative image. Burj Al Arab does not carry the Dubai tourism industry alone, but it carries a vastly larger symbolic burden than almost any ordinary luxury hotel on Earth. When this specific building changes, the global public does not only ask what is happening to a piece of real estate, the public asks what is happening to Dubai itself. Restoration therefore becomes much more than a simple contest between aging materials and new technology. It becomes a high-stakes attempt to control the meaning of change itself. So why does Burj Al Arab need approximately 18 months? The official answer is not that the hotel is sinking into the Arabian Gulf, or that its massive concrete foundations have failed. The officially announced program is explicitly designed to preserve its spectacular interiors, radically upgrade its hidden technology, renew its bespoke craftsmanship, and thoroughly prepare the global icon for its next chapter of operation. But looking closely at the restoration reveals something much larger about the nature of modern megastructures. A landmark of this scale is never truly completed. The initial construction phase simply gives way to a much longer, quieter battle against material age, technological obsolescence, severe environmental exposure, and the dangerous moment when the public begins to view a legendary icon as just another ordinary building. Dubai took only a few intense years to physically build Burj Al Arab out of the water. Maintaining the flawless illusion that time has never actually touched it may require a monumental commitment without any final completion date. In my view, the greater achievement is no longer simply that Dubai managed to build this impossible hotel in the sea back in 1999. The true achievement is that, more than a quarter of a century later, the city is still investing the immense time, capital, and obsessive attention required to make the next visitor feel exactly as though it was completed yesterday. Dubai defeated the sheer physical construction challenge once. The quiet, expensive battle to keep the symbol timeless never truly ended. Burj Al Arab fights time. It fights the salt. It fights the sea. But just a few kilometers away, Dubai faces an even stranger contradiction. Desert heat outside, freezing ice inside, sharks swimming in a mall, millions of visitors trapped in a beautiful, highly pressurized mechanical illusion. That is the massive engineering system we investigate next. This video distinguishes officially confirmed restoration plans from general engineering risks associated with marine environments. No public evidence reviewed for this episode indicates that Burj Al Arab is sinking, structurally unsafe, or undergoing restoration because of foundation failure. Any illustrative restoration sequences or hypothetical reputation scenarios are identified on screen and should not be interpreted as the hotel's disclosed engineering schedule.